Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. You are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Clint Daly, coming to you from the Mile High City here in Denver, Colorado, and we are back for another week of talking sports with a dose of common sense. Hey, happy Wednesday to you. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope your week is going well. Hope you, your family, your friends, everyone in your world is staying strong and healthy right now. And I'm telling you right now, we have so much today on the Daly Dose, we've got to just jump in. Because those Major League Baseball playoffs have now reached the league championships. And we're seeing some pretty wild stuff. Over the American League, it took the Seattle Mariners 15 innings to advance past the Detroit Tigers in that divisional round. But maybe that was exactly what they needed. Maybe they needed to be tested. And they were, because now they are facing the favored Toronto Blue Jays. And in the first two games, it has been advantage Seattle. The Mariners are up 2-0. And remember, those games have been played in Toronto. Now they get to go back to the great Northwest with a chance to win 2 games and go to the World Series, which would be uncharted territory for that franchise. But I mean, right now we're seeing it. That Mariners lineup just has so much pop. Julio Rodriguez, Josh Naylor, Jorge Polanco, they are always a threat. And that's not even counting like Cal Raleigh and JP Crawford. But the key so far in that ALCS has actually been the Mariners pitching. Because they have done a pretty good job of shutting down guys like George Springer and Vlad Guerrero, at least when they have to. Can the Mariners keep this going at home? Hey, I will issue this bit of a warning. There's going to be a ton of excitement tonight in Seattle for Game 3. And there's also going to be a ton of tension. Because if it starts to go bad, you're going to feel them start gripping. That's not going to be good. The Mariners need to get a win. And then over the National League, we saw the Milwaukee Brewers get tested a little bit by the Chicago Cubs before they advanced. Whereas the Los Angeles Dodgers, they mowed down that powerful Philadelphia Phillies lineup. In Game 1, Dodgers pitcher Blake Snell held Milwaukee to 1 hit in going a full 8 innings for only the second time in a career that has netted him a pair of Cy Young Awards. Snell struck out 10 and picked off the only base runner he allowed. Pretty good stuff. The Dodgers scraped out a 2-1 win. The Dodgers won again in Game 2 last night, and I am back to the same question I had going into these playoffs. Can the Brewers' bats step up in the postseason? Because now the Dodgers can just sweep them at home. Hey, Milwaukee needs to get a win tomorrow night, or this is over. And honestly, it might be over anyways.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.
Hey, today on The Dose, going into the college football and NFL seasons, we all had a few teams that we were expecting to be strong, right? But we also know that there usually tend to be a few teams just lurking underneath our radar. Today, we will take a look at a few of those teams that maybe didn't get all that much attention to start the season. They're starting to get our attention now. We also saw a big name head coach get fired, but as our Daly Dose Top 5 is going to show us, that might not be the good news that many think it is. But first, we do have a little bit of news to get to. You know, when you hear this, you're going to think I'm crazy or I made this up. I didn't. Do you realize NCAA athletes may soon be allowed to place legal bets on the NFL, NBA, and other professional leagues? The Division I Administrative Committee adopted a new policy last week that removes its longtime ban on wagering on sports for college athletes as long as it's not on college sports. Now, Division II and III are expected to approve that same rule later this month. If it happens, that change would take place on November 1st. That means NCAA athletes could be placing NFL Sunday parlays right after Halloween. Now, once again, I know the arguments. Everyone else is doing it. We should be able to do it too. Do you know what training that collegiate athletes and coaches go through basically on day one? You go through anti-gambling training because you can't be participating in gambling or sports betting or even March Madness bracket pools or any of those things. And do you know why? Because if you start losing money, you just might get desperate. And you just might do something stupid like, I don't know, shaving points or something. Now we're going to allow these kids to do it because we don't want them to feel left out? Telling you, this is going to go down a bad path. Don't say you didn't know. This is playing with fire. Speaking of collegiate sports, with college basketball season fast approaching, we, as consumers of that product, need to brace ourselves for all the stupid clickbaity articles that are coming. It happens every offseason. I mean, clickbait articles, they're kind of like pornography. You know it when you see it. But here is where I didn't expect to get clickbait. From a site called KenPom. But that might be what we have. For those who don't know, Ken Pomeroy is the creator of a college basketball website. It is a statistical archive called KenPom. And his website includes college basketball ratings and statistics for every single Division I team. Goes clear back to 2002 or something like that. Well, Pomeroy's website actually breaks down basketball on a possession-by-possession level. And throughout the season, Pomeroy continually updates his KenPom ratings for every Division I team in the country. And it rates a lot of things in depth, like offensive and defensive efficiency, tempo, pace, and the accuracy of the KenPom ratings. It's actually pretty amazing. Well, this year, KenPom has added one further caveat, and that is the role of the head coach. Because KenPom is now rating head coaches and including that influence into their algorithm. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? We know college basketball coaches, they can have a huge impact on the game. However, the KenPom coaches' ratings, they're a little bit odd. Check this out. Here is their top 10. Number 1, Houston's Kelvin Sampson. Okay. Number 2, Texas Tech's Grant McCasland. Okay. Number 3, St. Mary's Randy Bennett. Hey, kind of impressed. Bennett is better than people think he is. Number 4, Louisville's Pat Kelsey. Okay, I'm back to being confused. Number 5, St. John's Rick Pitino. Yes, we know he's so greasy he glides when he walks, but hey, Pitino can coach. Number 6, UConn's Dan Hurley. Number 7, Washington State's Kyle Smith. Really? Number 8, Gonzaga's Mark Few. Show me 7 other coaches that are better than Mark Few. What he's doing at Gonzaga? Come on. Number 9, Texas's Chris Beard. And number 10, Wake Forest Steve Forbes? For the record, Florida's head coach, Todd Golden, is number 39. Despite winning a title in Gainesville last year, and by the way, don't forget he did also take San Francisco to a tournament. But no Tom Izzo, Matt Painter, John Shire, Greg McDermott, Tommy Lloyd. Come on, nerds. I know it's analytics, but quit screwing this up. It shouldn't be that hard to have a better ranking than that. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Nerd!
Moving over to the NBA, do you realize that the 2025-2026 NBA season will tip off officially next Tuesday? Yeah, it's already here. But it seems that one of the league's biggest stars will not be on the floor because apparently Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James has sciatica that he's battling. That is what the Lakers announced last week. The 23-year veteran will miss a season opener for the first time in his career. Hey, I mean, LeBron is 40 years old. They say they'll reevaluate him in 3 to 4 weeks, which means he will be missing at least probably the first 5 games or so of the year. But Lakers front office officials have also expressed concern about LeBron even coming back that soon, because they say he is also at high risk for gout, glaucoma, and osteoporosis. We will see if LeBron can get healthy anytime soon. Finally, the WNBA finals are now complete. And I'll be honest, I don't really know too much about what happened or who won or whatever, but they are over. And so I'm not really sure what ESPN has on tap to try to jam down my throat next. But I mean, at least it won't be the WNBA because it's over. So I know Thanksgiving isn't until next month, and here it is mid-October, but I, for one, am very, very thankful. So, of course, the NFL season begins, and we're all looking at the big dogs. Maybe it's the defending Super Bowl champion, or maybe just the conference or divisional champs, or maybe it is a team that was real active in the draft or in free agency, but it seems like every year we see teams that we didn't really expect to do much. And now we're starting to figure out who is who. And we're starting to realize there might be a few teams that could be a little better than we thought. Here are a few teams that right now might be lurking a little under your radar. I'm going to start with the New England Patriots. Because after their win over the Buffalo Bills last week, hey, they are now sitting atop the division with the Bills, and they hold the tiebreaker. Now, I think most of us thought there would be some major improvements, but the Patriots still have a really young quarterback in Drake May. And the skill positions, they still kind of need to be developed. But hey, May has been improving. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs has been stepping up. The Patriots need to find a running game. That is one thing I am concerned about. But if they do, yeah, New England might be back to being a playoff team. I know it's disappointing for most everyone, but it does seem to be true. Next up, and I'll be honest, I picked this team to make the playoffs because they're just always in the playoffs, but I didn't think the Pittsburgh Steelers would be 4-1 at this point. And no, their strength of schedule isn't impressive at all. But they keep grinding out wins. And with the rest of the AFC North looking completely dysfunctional, I don't know, Pittsburgh just might win the division with ease. I'm still not convinced that their offense is very good. To be honest, I'm not even convinced that their defense is very good. But in that division, it might be good enough. The Indianapolis Colts might be one of the biggest surprises in the entire league. The Colts are currently 5-1. And yes, they've had a little luck on their side, but there's no question this team has some talent. Running back Jonathan Taylor can be a game breaker on any play. Quarterback Daniel Jones has been way better than expected. Now, I am a little concerned about their defense. Because yes, you look at the stats and you say, well, Colts are allowing just 19 points a game. That's pretty good. That's true. But they're also doing kind of a bend, but don't break thing. Sometimes when you get into the big games, you could break. But if the Colts defense holds up, hey, they're going to be pretty tough. Speaking of defense, I know this is going to sound like a homer pick, but I do think the Denver Broncos might be a little better than some people expected. And don't get me wrong, I am not sold at all on the Denver Broncos offense. But their defense just might allow them to contend for a playoff spot. That Broncos defense, they've actually kind of changed what they do this season. Because they're not blitzing as much if you watch them. They're actually dropping back into coverage. But they're getting away with that because they have guys like Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito chasing quarterbacks around. Now, I think the Broncos have to improve that running game. Otherwise, I don't think they're really a title threat. But with that defense, they can at least be a playoff threat. And if they could figure out a little offense, maybe they could make some noise there. Keep this in mind. If not for a weird leverage penalty, the Denver Broncos would actually have the top record in the AFC. I know, who saw that coming? Moving over to the NFC, we were all expecting the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders to just own that NFC East. They're going to be playoff teams easily. Maybe Dallas could even be a threat. Okay, but who had the New York Giants doing anything? Now, we're going to have to see if this can last. But the Giants lost their first 3 games, but they have now won 2 of their last 3 since they benched quarterback Russell Wilson in favor of rookie Jackson Dart. Okay, so the Giants are 2-4. Big deal, right? But keep in mind who they've beaten. The Giants have beaten the Chargers and the Eagles. Those are 2 pretty good wins. Could they get rolling? Hey, that defensive front is solid. Rookie running back Cam Scatterbo, he just runs around looking for things to smash his head into. I don't know, the Giants might be at least a little more interesting than we expected at first. I'm not saying they can, win anything, but they might push for a playoff spot, and I don't think anybody had them doing that. I'm going to say something that might sound insane, but the Carolina Panthers are actually a bit of a surprise this year because here's the thing. They're not horrible. In fact, I'll go one step further. That Panthers offensive line might actually be good. And that is changing everything about the Panthers. That is helping quarterback Bryce Young slowly start to look like a bona fide NFL quarterback. Hey, the Panthers can run the ball with running back Rico Dowdle. I'm not sold on that defense, but if you get in a shootout with them, you just might lose, as the Dallas Cowboys found out on Sunday. The Panthers are 3-3, but they're way better than I expected. I thought they'd be like 1-5 right now. They're looking pretty solid. And it is mostly because of that offensive line. And lastly, I wasn't quite sure what to make of the Seattle Seahawks going into the season. I had them as kind of right on the edge of maybe being a playoff team, 7-10, 8-9 kind of team, but they might be establishing themselves as a legit playoff contender because the Seahawks are now 4-2, and quarterback Sam Darnold, he's playing pretty good football. He's got those two running backs behind him, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, and then with wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba looking like he might be like a special kind of player, hey, that Seahawks offense can score. The Seahawks defense is solid. Their pass rush is improving. And I mean, yes, we know what Sam Darnold is going to do when things get serious. He's going to be Sam Darnold. But right now, I would absolutely list the Seahawks as being better than anyone expected them to be. They are a pain, and they could be a problem over in the NFC. Moving over to college football, remember that prior to the season, we were looking at teams like, Texas, Penn State, Clemson to be top teams. My, how things change, right? But again, we have seen teams that we didn't expect to be good really stepping up, improving. Yeah, you might not know us that well, but we can play with the big boys. And let's start with the biggest of those, because that would be Indiana, who may have pulled off the most impressive win of the season this last weekend by going into Autzen Stadium and smacking the number 3 Oregon Ducks about the face and head. Hey, head coach Curt Cignetti, yeah, he's kind of a jerk, but he's kind of a jerk that you want on your side. And with their remaining schedule, I think Indiana's going to cruise all the way to the Big Ten title game. And if so, they've got a pretty good shot of getting into the playoff. Indiana might be going to that 12-team playoff again. Moving over to the ACC, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets weren't expected to do all that much, and I'm still not fully sold on them because their schedule has been really soft. But the Yellow Jackets are putting up big points behind quarterback Haynes King, and that schedule is going to stay friendly. Georgia Tech gets Pitt at home, and then end the season against Georgia. That'll be tough. But Tech could be headed to the ACC championship game, and if you just show well, you don't even have to win. Show well, you're at least going to have a shot at that college football playoff. Georgia Tech has been better than expected. You know, we briefly talked about this next team in our college football preview, but they just lost so many people that we all kind of thought, well, the BYU Cougars, they're going to take a step back. Hey, that hasn't been the case. Head coach Kalani Sitake has built another physically tough team, and quarterback Bear Bachmeier, he doesn't always look pretty, but he's pretty effective. Keep this in mind. This will be interesting. BYU will go to Texas Tech in a few weeks. That might be a Big 12 championship preview. Lastly, prior to the season, we talked about what group of 5 team might be able to crash the college football playoff this season. We thought maybe Boise State could do it. They did it last year. Yeah, no chance. They're having a little bit of a rough year. Notre Dame could still make the playoff, but their schedule isn't going to help them. And they're not really group of 5. I mean, we say that, but they're not really just because they're independent. And with 2 losses already, Notre Dame can't afford to slip up again. They are starting to play well. However, could we see a team like, the Memphis Tigers, who are undefeated? Or maybe the South Florida Bulls, whose lone loss was to number 5 Miami at the time. Memphis and South Florida actually played this week. The Navy Midshipmen are also undefeated. They still have Notre Dame, South Florida, and Memphis to play in consecutive weeks. That won't be easy, but if they got through it, yeah, they might be a playoff team. And then out west, we have the UNLV Rebels, who are now 6-0 with wins over UCLA and Air Force. Now, the Rebels have Boise State this week. They would need some help. They would need a couple teams in front of them to drop, but there is still a chance that a group of 5 team could make a run at the playoff, and it might not be the ones we originally thought. Hey, remember to stop by DailyDoseSports.com every week and check out the new things we have going on over there. We have links to the podcast, We have links to videos, and we have links to new articles that I put up every single week. Plus, you can always go over and find links to Daly Dose gear. Need a t-shirt, a hoodie, a sweatshirt, a baseball cap? Make sure you stop by dalydosesports.com. And remember, you can always email the podcast at dalydosesports@gmail.com. We do hear from listeners. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad and hilarious. But it is always good to hear from you. So make sure to reach out if you've got something on your mind. Now, as we do so many weeks here at the Daly Dose, we need to get over to our Daly Dose Top 5. After 12 seasons in Happy Valley, the Penn State Nittany Lions fired head football coach James Franklin this past Sunday. Now, Franklin is owed nearly $50 million according to his contract. That is the second biggest buyout in college football history, behind Jimbo Fisher's $76 million buyout when he was down at Texas A&M. Associate head coach Terry Smith is going to serve as the interim head coach for the rest of the season. But I mean, it's kind of crazy, because less than a year removed from making the college football playoff semifinals, Franklin's program appeared to hit a new low when the Nittany Lions lost to Oregon, and then they went to LA 2 weeks ago, lost to UCLA, and then they went back home and lost to Northwestern on Saturday. Chants of Fire Franklin were quite popular in Happy Valley. Well, with those two recent losses, Penn State has now become the first team since the FBS and FCS split back in '78 to lose consecutive games while favored by 20 or more points in each game. Hey, James Franklin just couldn't win the big game. That's what his detractors would say. His .160 winning percentage against top 10 teams is tied for the third worst record by a coach at a single school since the poll era began back in the 30s. And yet, James Franklin was 104-45 at Penn State. And if you remember the hard times that Penn State had, later in those Joe Paterno years, and then under Bill O'Brien, hey, say whatever you want. Franklin restored Penn State to being back in the public consciousness. And I know fans want to win every year, every game, all the time, but James Franklin was doing something right. Today, our Daly Dose Top 5 is counting down 5 college football programs that fired their head coach, and they ended up regretting it. And keep in mind that I'm not including guys like Mac Brown at Texas or Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech, because they weren't technically fired, although we know they were forced out. Let's go ahead and jump in. We start off at number 5. And we go to a school that doesn't really have much of a history of winning anything. And in fact, they had only been a Division I football school for a few years when Florida International hired former Miami player and assistant coach Mario Cristobal to take over the Golden Panthers. Well, Cristobal got the job in 2007, and FIU at the time had an all-time record of 8-25. Okay, so Mario takes over, and in year 4, it took them a little bit of time, but in year 4, they go 7-6, they make a bowl game. Hey, not bad. In year 5, they go 8-5, another bowl game. In year 6, they slip, they went 3-9. Okay, he had to replace some people, but it's just 1 year. Looks like he's building something. Nope. FIU thought they were above that sort of thing, so they fired Cristobal in 2012. He had gone 27-47, but had taken them to 2 bowl games. And FIU seemed like maybe they were on the rise. Well, since then, FIU has been to just 3 bowl games. They are 9-27 in the last 3 seasons. Meanwhile, Cristobal went to Oregon. He took them to 4 bowl games, big bowl games. Now he's at Miami. He has them in the hunt for a national title. But hey, FIU, you thought you deserved more. How's that working out? Florida International lands on our list today at number 5. We move next to number 4. And we land on a guy that of all the guys on this list might have actually gotten the worst deal. You never want to be the guy after the guy. And that is what Frank Solich was at Nebraska back in '98. Because he was the coach after Tom Osborne. Well, Osborne was a legend. So Solich got the job. He won over 75% of his games. But Nebraska fans had decided they were national title or bust. So they chased Solich off. And he actually went on and had a very successful run at the University of Ohio. He took them to 11 bowl games in 16 years. But since they fired Solich back in 2003, the Nebraska Cornhuskers have been to just 12 bowl games. Hey, Frank Solich was a good coach, but Nebraska got greedy, and they really haven't been strong ever since. Nebraska comes in at number 4. We go to number 3, and so many times, like I said, these schools get a small amount of success, and they convince themselves that winning is their birthright. And that is the case here at number 3, because the University of Maryland, they're not a blue blood college football program. In 109 seasons, they've been to just 30 bowl games. They're just barely over 500 as a program ever. Well, in 2001, a fat dude named Ralph Friedgen took over at Maryland, and he immediately made the Terrapins a household name. He won over 60% of his games. He took Maryland to 7 bowl games in 10 years, and I'm not talking about little bowl games. I'm talking about the Orange Bowl, the Gator Bowl, the Peach Bowl. Friedgen had Maryland ranked in the top 10. In 2010, Friedgen had taken the Terps to a 9-4 record and a bowl game. He was named the ACC Coach of the Year when Maryland announced they weren't happy with only making it to the Military Bowl. They wanted to be in big bowl games. So they fired Friedgen. They fired the Coach of the Year, and his offensive coordinator, a guy by the name of James Franklin, took the job at Vanderbilt. Since 2010, the Maryland Terrapins have been to exactly 6 bowl games. None bigger than the Music City Bowl. Nice move, Maryland. You land on our list today at number 3. So we reach the number 2 school that fired their head coach, and we go to a program they didn't realize how good they had it. Because yes, back in, the Civil War era, and then in the 70s and 80s, the Tennessee Volunteers had some really talented teams, but aside from one year back in the 50s, they always came up short. Well, in 1992, Tennessee head coach Johnny Majors was having health concerns, so the Vols handed the reins over to a former offensive lineman and offensive lineman coach named Philip Fulmer. Fulmer would coach the Vols for 17 years, going 152-52. He took Tennessee to 15 bowl games, and he won the national championship in 1998. Well, in 2008, Tennessee lost a big game to number 10 Georgia. They ended up going just 5-7. And the boosters jumped in, and they got Tennessee to fire Fulmer. So Tennessee, instead, hired the hot new young prospect, a guy named Lane Kiffin. Hey, he's gotten better. But Kiffin wasn't ready for that job. He lasted just 1 season. Then came Derek Dooley. Then came Butch Davis. Then came Brady Hoke. Then came Jeremy Pruitt. Josh Heupel is there now. He's the best coach Tennessee has had since Fulmer, but he hasn't gotten the program back to where Fulmer had it. Tennessee thought they deserved more, and they got less, and they come in at number 2. So we reach the number 1 coach on our list today that got fired, and then the school actually got worse, and we reach a school that has now made our list not once, but twice, because they deserve it. Because after firing Frank Solich, the Nebraska Cornhuskers hired a guy named Bill Callahan. He was a mess. Callahan barely went over 500. Well, that wouldn't cut it. So they fired him too. And in 2008, Nebraska hired LSU defensive coordinator Bo Pelini. Hey, Pelini was a tough guy. He wasn't friendly with the media, and he didn't care if you liked him or not. But Pelini went 67-27 in Lincoln. He took the Huskers to a bowl game in all 7 seasons that he was on the job. But they weren't big enough bowl games. Yes, Nebraska was winning, but they weren't winning like Osborne did back in the 70s. And Pelini was not friendly. He was not warm. He was not cuddly. So Nebraska fired him too. And they brought in Mike Riley. And then Scott Frost. And now Matt Rule. And none of them have really done anything worth noting. But when you think you deserve more, you think you're going to find a guy that is better. Here's some more bad news for Nebraska, by the way. Matt Rule, yeah, he's got Penn State ties. Keep that in mind. But, Penn State might want to consider our Daly Dose top 5 today. Because you might not get a better coach. You might get a worse one. And your program might slide back into obscurity. Don't think it can't happen. It's happened before. Hey, next week on The Dose, I've got something extra special for you. Trust me, it will be worth your time. It will be heavily college football flavored. So be sure to check out The Dose and be sure you let a friend know to do the same. Hey, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for listening to the Daly Dose every week. Thank you for the emails. Thank you for the texts. Thank you for the tweets. But more than anything, thank you for sharing the show, for sharing the videos, for sharing the articles with someone that you know. We absolutely love it when you do that. Have to say thank you to Jess P. We could not do any of this without you. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week, everybody.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.